I've got big plans for my future. A good college, a career, maybe even my own business someday. That's why I choose anal sex. I mean, sure, it hurts a little, and I wind up walking funny for a day or two, but I think my future's worth it.
Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. My name is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Women are going crazy trying to freeze all their eggs so they can maybe one day have a family. There's a problem, though. There's no men around to help them fertilize those eggs. And so they're ending up being childless and without family and unhappy and miserable. Now, the news many times, and of course feminists will say, well, I just want my best life. I want to chase my career. I want to chase my education. But the truth of it is, from the Observer, motherhood on ice, lack of suitable men drives women to freeze their eggs. Now, what happens when you take, I don't know, the last couple of decades, and the millennials and the Gen Z growing up are told over and over again, men are bad, men are useless, men are weak. They're going to put down men, part of the evil patriarchy. We want their jobs, we want their incomes, we want their salaries. And also, they're stupid, they're unreliable, they're not necessary. What happens? Men say, okay, I'm out. That's it, I'm out. And they leave the dating world. They leave many of these positions. And so women will they don't understand the fact that they only want to date up. But what happens when women are at the top of the pecking order? There's no more men above them. And they don't want to date down, so now there's no more men. I don't know, 4 billion of us no longer exist to these women. And what it reminds me of, if you know, I'm not a buffalo expert by any means, but we had millions of buffalo here in the United States. And between driving them off of a cliff to fall to the bottom, that was the way they would kill sometimes very big herds, or hunting them, buffalo almost went extinct. And whether they did it to use them for resources, to use them for their pelts, to take them away from Native Americans, they did it for sport, whatever, they almost drove them to extinction. Well, women are doing the same thing when it comes to men and dating. Now, whether they're shaming men for sport, whether they want to take their positions in business or take their positions in upper education, whether they want to shame them for likes on social media, either way, men are becoming extinct in the eyes of these women. Now, there's still 4 billion of us around. I don't know the last time any man, got an insult on Twitter and keeled over dead, but the dating portion and the having families and getting married portion is going away. Now, before I read this article, I want to bring this point up. This is a being shared online. When you told yourself 27 is the year I'm finally going to get a boyfriend, but you're about to be 28 in a few days and still never had a single boyfriend, never having had a boyfriend. And somebody down here says, Lexa V says, if we're being honest, I've been saying this for the past 10 years. Now, she's not ugly. I'd say she wouldn't have that hard time finding somebody to date her. I'm sure many of you guys said, hey, if she had a great personality, was funny, attractive, slim, feminine, I'd date her. But she can't even get a boyfriend at 27, almost 28. Why? She's either A, insufferable, B, too choosy, or both. Now, how many of you want to say both? I think we all do. And I have the story I'm going to read from in a minute, but I want to kind of give you the little bit of a warm up here of things I'm seeing on the internet today. This Layla Hellepern, she has 500,000 followers. She's the author of Undressing Bitcoin. She's a marketing consultant, freedom maximalist, so you could probably say she's relatively conservative. She's got 500,000, almost 600,000 followers. And she says, there are miserable red pill men on the internet telling young men to get a vasectomy and not have kids. All high-value, well-raised women want children. This is a horrendous advice. Please don't listen. These men sound worse than the bitter feminists. But what she doesn't realize herself, and let me pull up a picture of her. Here's a picture of her. The men that we're talking to, we're invisible. She's not talking to us, guys. She's talking to the other very hot, successful men that she wants to be with. Now, maybe she's married, but I'm just talking about in general. And what she doesn't understand is that those men, the average men, are out of the market now. And this was my reply. I said, maybe women need to adjust their standards back into reality if they want a family. And we're going to read from that article right now. From the Observer, motherhood on ice, lack of suitable men drives women to freeze their eggs. A lack of equal male partners rather than the career or educational ambitions is why more women are trying to prolong their fertility. See, we were told it's women wanting an education, so they want to put it off. Women wanting a career, so they put it off. No, they're now making more than men. They're graduating higher education at a rate 20% more than men. And a lot of men see what's going on and they say, I'm not getting leftovers. I'm not getting into this. I'm out. And now the women can't find not only the good men that they want, they can't find any men. This is from Miranda Bryant. Meanwhile, in academic circles, egg freezing was and still is often seen as a calculated act by women to hack their fertility by prolonging it through medical intervention, as if this was something very intentional that women were doing in this kind of planned, almost feminist narrative, says Inhorn. This argument was so compelling that it formed one of her initial hypotheses. Is career and education aspiration that's driving the turn into egg freezing? So, in other words, is that these women want to become successful and they want to chase their jobs, and they freeze their eggs so they can do all the things they want to do and then come back around and then focus on the family. And she looked into it. And she said, but when she started speaking to women, it became almost immediately clear that in fact it was something or someone else driving the globally expanding trend, which in less than a generation has gone from unheard of to, in some circles, almost ubiquitous. More than 150 interviews later, her research, the largest anthropological study to date into why women freeze their eggs, concluded that it was men, not women, who were the problem. Now, we know it's not the men that's the problem. We know it's the women having too high of standards, wanting the guy to be all the things, all the sixes, like we always talk about. We know, because there's plenty of men around. But the problem is the average man is invisible. They hypergamy. They only date up. But when women are now the leaders in income and leaders in higher education and leaders in jobs and leaders in this and leaders in that, there's no more men above them. And they certainly aren't going to date down. They say the biggest driving factor for women in the U.S. was a shortage of suitable educated men, a problem which she terms in her forthcoming book, Motherhood on Ice, the Mating Gap. And what I'm talking about when I relate to the buffalo is you end all the buffalo. There's no more buffalo yet. You can't come out and say, this is the buffalo's fault. You can't come out and say, the buffalo are just scared of strong, empowered women. No, there's no more buffalo left. And so when women take the places of powerful men, they take the places of successful men and highly educated men and well-to-do men, and then they look around and they say, well, there's no men here. Are you going to give up your job position, your title, your education, your money so a guy can step in and take that place and be an eligible bachelor for somebody else? No, of course not. So they live in a perpetual state of almost duality where they say, I want the high position, but I want a man that also has the high position. Well, there's not enough high positions to go around, so you're going to give up yours? No. Then there's no high value men. Well, it's the men's fault. Okay, good luck with that. Inhorn's research found that women freezing their eggs tend to be in their late 30s, successful, high-earning professionals, both in the U.S. and the U.K., where it's not usually covered by the NHS. It's prohibitively expensive for most and primarily single. They were one after another women who had been successful in their career and at the same time had been looking for a partner, but they just couldn't find that reproductive partner, right? So, if you find a very successful man who's attractive and masculine and makes a good income, if he finds a sweet, funny, beautiful girl I'm sorry, I have the dogs playing today again. So a powerful, successful, guy, he'll date a girl that's a model or pretty. I mean, she could work at Taco Bell. And if he's like, you know what, she's got an awesome personality. She's smoking hot. She's feminine. I don't care how much money she makes. I don't care how educated she is. I handle that kind of thing. You just need to be a good mother and feminine and give me access to sex and treat me well and respect me, and I'll take care of you. But now, when the reverse happens, women will not date the Taco Bell man and help, carry him along her back. She wants him to be as good as or better, and they don't exist at the same numbers. You've got 20 or 30 or 50% of women looking for 5% of men. Well, 45% of women are going to end up empty-handed, and that's exactly what's happening. In 2019, there were 28% more women than men in higher education in the U.S., and soon it's projected there will be 2 university-educated women in America for every 1 university-educated man. This, says Inhorn, has left a stark imbalance when it comes to finding an equal partner. So 30% more women are graduating higher education than men right now. And soon they think it'll be 2 to 1, which means 50%. That means 30% today and 50% tomorrow won't find a man because there's not enough men. This is why I say that guys have more power, and guys that are successful and that are doing well for themselves, they have more power than they realize. To stop feeling bad for yourself, to stop simping, to stop being thirsty. The women may not know you're a catch, but you are, because statistics say that you are. They just don't know it and may never come back to reality to do anything about it. They say that this educational gap is not limited to the U.S. There are growing educational gender disparities in Canada and Europe, particularly in the UK. Right, westernized countries, right? We know this, and this is where feminism is taking off. Many of the women Inhorn spoke to said they wanted an egalitarian relationship, which often meant finding someone with similar level of education and, of course, similar level of income. We know this. That's a given. But among those who did not object to partnering with somebody less educated, it still proved to be a problem because the men were often intimidated by the success of the women. Some women resorted to toning down their educational achievements on their dating app profiles to avoid putting men off, while others hired professionals to help them with their profiles. Now, let me put a pin in this. Are some men intimidated by a woman that maybe is higher education, higher earning than they are? Yes. Why? Because the men aren't necessary. The men don't feel like they're needed or wanted. They feel like they're second best. And there's the real fear that if the woman then meets someone who she feels is her equal or better, she will leave her current partner for that guy. And all you have to do is look at the 90% divorce rate, or excuse me, I think it's a 90% divorce rate, or it's 90% of women file divorce when they're doing better than their husbands. So it's a real risk, and men know this risk because they're listening to the data. They're seeing the dating trends. They understand what's going on. And so men are saying, I'm not even going to get started in this because it's likely going to end poorly. So why start it's almost like a football team, right? And the football players are like 13, they're young, and they're going against a professional team. You don't know the outcome of the score yet, but you know it's going to be really bad against your team, right? You know those professionals are going to kick the crap out of you. That's how men are viewing marriage. They're like, why am I going to get started in this? It's not going to turn out well for me. She's either going to find somebody better. I'm going to, be like some blue-pilled simp for her. She's never going to respect me. I have no role in this relationship. I'm out. She says, sometimes men would joke or insult them about their jobs or say, you're smarter than I am. I can't go out with you. I could see that. I mean, just really blatant kinds of misogyny and discrimination, she says. That's not misogyny. That's not discrimination. The man is giving you a compliment. He's not insulting you. He's saying you're smarter than I am. How is that misogynistic? How is that insulting? How is that discriminating? No, he's paying you a compliment. but he's doing it from a place of reality. You're smarter than I am. You make more money than I do. This isn't going to work out. And he knows it. So the women become upset. But it's the bed of their own making. They made this bed. And again, you notice in this whole article, there's no reflection on maybe we women are the problem. Maybe we're asking for too much. Maybe we demand too much. No. No, it's never their fault. It's always your fault. And even this article, just this last sentence here, even this article is insulting to the same men that they're hoping to acquire. But they're too stupid to see it. While the women may have been socialized to believe they could have a career, a family, and equal relationship, she found the men had not necessarily been raised the same way. Partnership was not high on the priorities of men, reluctant to commit and unready for fatherhood, who the women in her study were coming across. Now that's key. The women in her study were coming across men who were reluctant to commit and unready for fatherhood. Why? Why were these men not ready to commit and unready for fatherhood? Number one, they know divorce statistics. Number two, if she's some boss B that wants to run the relationship, the man's not interested. He wants her to be feminine, compliant, sweet, kind. These women usually aren't that. They're headstrong, power hungry. It becomes like a combat, like who's in charge of this relationship. And lastly, they're chasing the 5%ers. 5%ers are not going to get married. 5%ers don't want a family. Why? Because 5%ers make tons of money. They go to the exclusive clubs. They party it up. They bang all the hot girls. I mean, look at Tony Stark. Great example. You know, if you watch, the Iron Man movies, Tony Stark was like, he jokingly at one point was like, I slept with all the Playboy cover models 1 year. He said, except for like Miss November who got a cold, but I think he said Miss December was twins, so I made up for it, right? Why wouldn't Tony Stark settle down? Lots of sports cars, lots of monies, going to these parties, sleeping with all the beautiful. He has everything. Only later, once that guy's maybe in his 50s and he's in his 60s, does he decide to slow down and get that family. And by then it's going to be a 28-year-old supermodel. Look at Mick Jagger. You know, look at some of these. I always liked Mick Jagger because Mick Jagger has a horse face. Like, he's not a good-looking dude. But at like 72, he just had a kid with like a 28-year-old model. Why would he settle down? Of course not. He's going to settle down when he's past his prime. Well, he's not past his prime, but I'm saying like he's past his prime for maybe what these women are looking for. Then there were those who simply didn't want to. I learned the term the Peter Pans. You know, the men who will never grow up. They may be educated men who have money and so forth, but they want to play around and have lots of fun and may not partner up at all, or may not partner well into their 40s and 50s, she says. Okay, I read this article 3 days ago, so maybe that leached into my brain. I didn't know that was the next paragraph, but she just made my point. She just made my point. Yes, again, these women are looking for top 5%ers. On a personal level, Inhorn, who's a mother of two but would have opted for egg freezing after getting divorced in her 30s. Oh, you mean a very successful, intelligent woman who was married and a mother of two got divorced?
I am shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
Of course she did. Again, they never see their own actions. She did it herself. She says, the lack of progress in men's attitudes since then is tragic. Oh, so you're going to tell me that after looking at divorce rates and child custody rates and calling men problematic and toxic and in your own article misogynistic and awful and evil and bad, and then you're going to turn around and say, oh, your attitude is awful. Look what you've been doing to men. Look what you've been saying about men. Look at the way you treat men. That anybody is beneath you as a man is invisible. And when that man says, nah, I don't want any part of this, you're going to say his attitude is bad? No, it's you that's done it to the men. It's like slapping somebody and punching them and calling them names. And then when they start to walk away, you go, where are you going? Where are you going? I thought we were going to go out to dinner. It's like, no. That's not how this works. She says a lot of the people I went to graduate school with didn't end up partnering, or they partnered in marriages that weren't really very happy, she says. And what surprised me 30 years on is seeing the same kind of partnership problems in this generation of women and trying to figure out what's gone wrong. Again, no understanding of what men need, how men think, what men want out of a relationship, what men want from women. It's a foreign language to them. They have no idea what's gone wrong. Gee, what could it be in the last 20, 30, 40 years that's gone crazy with everything? Feminism. Women taking everything from the men. Women are taking everything the man is supposed to do in the relationship. And when the man's like, I'm not even needed here anymore, and the women are like, yeah, we're smarter and better than you, and a guy walks away, then they're like, whoa, where are you going? While she did not interview men for her study, oh, there's a shock. How about you talk to the men that aren't doing the dating and getting in the relationships? How about you talk to them and find out what their problem is? Nope, we're just going to make assumptions. Why would we want to talk to men? They're so beneath us. Who cares what men think? We're just going to make up our own minds why this is happening. This is literally stupid. This is what I'm talking about. There were many positive men in the lives of women she interviewed, she says. Almost invariably, the women's stories of egg freezing were about men. So the book is The Views of Men Through Women's Eyes. Right. What is the view of a man through a woman's eyes? Oh, that's going to be accurate. Ladies, what do men think? That's literally what she's saying. Ladies, what do men think? So stupid. Her findings home in. She says her findings home in. I think she meant honed. Hone. That's an N, not an M. Her findings hone in on the decline of men, but Inhorn says this is also having a deleterious effect on women's lives. Oh, so men having a hard time is causing women to have a hard time, and thus it's a bad thing. Not because the men are having a hard time, but because it's making women have a hard time. So men are suffering, women most affected. Literally. Literally. In her book, Inhorn writes that closing the gap between the genders will be a critical policy challenge in the decades ahead, but until society, quote, fixes men, egg freezing will remain the best reproductive option for single women in their 30s. That's right, guys. That's right, guys. We have to fix men. It's not the women. And are you ready for the best part? Here's the summary. But in the meantime, she says, we should focus on celebrating women's successes. Yep, in the meantime, let's not worry about any of that. Let's not worry about the men suffering or their lack of education or their inability to make money or finding enough viable partners for women. Let's celebrate women's successes. That's what got you exactly where you are. Let's celebrate driving the buffalo off a cliff. We'll throw a party, and then when there's no more buffalo to eat and they're extinct, then what do? Well, we'll celebrate doing the thing. And she says women around the world are doing amazing things in higher education. But unfortunately, the downside of that is that some men are not doing so well now, and women are suffering for that. They did the thing again, a second time in this article. Men are suffering, and men are having problems, and men are struggling. Women most affected. Some men are not doing well now, and women are suffering because of the men not doing well. They literally did it again. And so when you see things like this, it's not men's fault when she's 27 going on 28 and never had a boyfriend. She's attractive enough. If she has a nice personality, I mean, she looks relatively feminine. She doesn't look massive. I'm quite sure if she was nice, feminine, sweet, and had realistic standards, she'd probably have a lot of guys. But she's not. She's either crazy, she's mean, she's a feminist, or I don't know what it is. But there's something when you get to the age of 28 and can't even secure a date. So these women are taking men's educations. And when I say taking, they're literally getting more scholarships for higher education. There's more, I think it's 10-to-1 scholarships for women in higher education. And women are being, stunning and brave, and men are being shunned. What happens when these guys do all this education and they go to get a job and they say, I'm sorry, we're only hiring women, somebody of the LDHD TV community, or someone of a BIPOC. You're a white man, you're out. Other people see that and they go, well, I'm not going to get into higher education, then screw it. Why would they? Why would they put themselves in debt and they can't even get a job? And so men are getting squeezed out. Women are most affected by this. And now 50, 60, 70% of women are competing for 5% of men. And I don't know what the percentages are. I'm just making this up. But there's millions and millions and millions of women that don't have a shot with those 5%ers. And the 5%ers are not getting married. They're not settling down. They're enjoying their best lives. They're being Tony Stark. And who do the women blame? The men. You gotta love it. They blame the men. Guys, right now, please, if you would, join me over on betterbachelor.locals.com. Please consider becoming a supporter today. I don't talk about this much, but becoming a supporter, $5 a month, $4 a month if you do it for a year-long support level. It really helps keep me independent. That way I don't have to read video game ads and VPN ads, and I can stay away from products I don't want to support because you guys independently fund me. And if you become a supporter over there, there's no ads, there's no YouTube ads. YouTube doesn't take 30% of the cut off the top of there, or go over to Rumble at least. But I would appreciate it if instead you became a supporter and join me on betterbachelor.locals.com today.